So
What
what
do
I
you get?
wanted
Where
to get
do you?
to,
I don't have to listen.
I also don't have to listen. Maybe I should just go.
Maybe you should.
I didn't want this to turn into a debate, guys. I'm sorry, Dr. Kipp. I didn't want that to happen. I just wanted you guys to tell me why you.
Your greed stains your soul with the stench of ruin.
Now,
So are they reversing the aspirant then on those names?
I don't know. Ammon, what do you think about that?
The
Is that
Hebrew
Okay,
name
okay.
isn't-
Let me just
Yeah. All right.
let me
yeah.
just step in. Ambulance 911 call. I'm coming at this. As a classical philologist, and I'm a linguist. What you're talking about is idiom. That's the word that you're looking for. Not artistic phrase. You mean idiom?
No, actually,
And
I mean within.
So hang on.
Yeah. Okay.
Adam is you would say it's a Hebrew name because why means earth next to it, and that's exactly what they did since the Talmud was made. That's exactly what they did. The problem is Adam is a name in Mycenaean Greek.
Help me understand that. Is it starts in Greek and it's translated into the Hebrew?
Yeah. No, thank you. That directs us back to the path that I wanted to be able to contribute tonight. Yeah, we're looking at the evidence, right? That's all. Let's look at the text and let's figure out, are these Greek? As a linguist, you have to have a broad depth of knowledge. So we're talking about the Septuagint. If you haven't read Homer, Kipp, have you read Homer?
I haven't.
Okay, if you haven't read Homer, you're not reading the very basis of the grammarian's language in antiquity.
That's probably
not
fair.
only that, you got to read lyric poets. You've got to read all sorts of playwrights and comedians. You've got to read really boring Aristotle until your brain is pouring out in order to get to a point that you can identify style. The trained classicist should be able to take a text that's just thrown to them and say, where is this from? Give me 100-year window stylistically. That's what a good classicist can do. That's what you have to do when you're editing.
I'm not a
manuscripts.
classicist, though.
No. I'm telling
He's talking
you.
like anybody in general.
Okay.
It's not directed at you.
Yeah.
Not you,
Oh,
Kipp.
okay.
Not you,
All
Kipp. Okay.
Okay.
So as a classicist, you're coming at it from that scientific linguistic angle, right?
Okay.
So that's what gives me that authority to say, no, that word Adam is far older. Now you believe it's from the word for earth because that's what people said hundreds of years later.
So
What
real quick? So you're saying these are folk etymologies that derive from the text?
No, I'm saying they're out and out lies that are not scholarly. They are meant as they recognize at the time. Because remember, in the 2nd century, this brilliant grammarian comes along, Julius Africanus, and he says, "Wait a minute, you guys are trying to translate this thing from Hebrew. It's in colloquial Greek, brah. It's not Hebrew." And Origen, I think it was at the time, says, "There's nothing we can do." He says, "You may be right. There's nothing we can do." Right? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it's not me saying that this Septuagint is not Hebrew. That's what they were saying a long, long time ago, based upon the science of the language. So that's what my presentation is about. And I just want to give the audience a little flavor of the Greek that shows the text cannot be a translation. And I want you to keep one thing in mind. When you are translating, you never translate with increased technicality, right? You never raise the level of technical expertise of your source. You cannot make or pile in technicality. When we describe, for example, Noah's different floors, the architectural term in Greek, they don't have it in Hebrew, right? Because everybody knows, by the way, just people need to get this out there. The Hebrew vocabulary the number of independent words, 8,000 at best, and quite a few of those are hop hogs. So 5,000.
Kipp, you smirked at that. So
5,000.
Because you Hebrew guy.
So I mean, I spend a lot of time looking at like when I mean, so many of the Hebrew roots are based in the wider Canaanite languages. They're all there.
Which come from that Semitic side.
Yeah.
All of that whole area.
It's not Indo-European.
Right.
You've only got 8,000. You've only got 8,000, Kipp. There are 250,000 plus.
Right.
On the ancient Greek side. The level of technical expertise in Greek is so high, and the Romans would agree with Latin with the same thing, that the Hebrew could never achieve the sophistication. And I'll show you that right now with the text.
All right, let's do this. Let's do this, Kipp. Yeah. I know Kipp's gonna have some questions. Let's hold off on anything. Mm-hmm. Let's let Ammon just go.
Okay, Neal, can you bring up the first slide? I'm just gonna quote to you here. Yeah, there was a dude in the land called Alcibiades, and the dude's name was Job, right? And this guy was what? Look at the third line. He was Alethinos, Amymptos, Dikaios, Theosebes. Now, only 3 of those are represented in the Hebrew. One of those concepts drops directly. The problem that we get into is, what do these words mean? That last word, Theosebes, is a Greek word that goes back as far as Greek does. I just want you to look. You can go to the next one, Neal. Look at the roots that are being used. This is just a handful of them, but you notice that Sabaoth is there. And right away, people will jump in and say, Hebrew. Nope, sorry. It's earlier tested Greek. Yes, good. And why is that? Because we Greeks, we worship Sabazeus. This is not a new concept to us. Look at the verbs here, right? Look at them. Sabadzo, to sabadzo something. It is to extend Saba. And what is that Saba? It is from the Pelasgian side, which goes back to the Chalcolithic era, Derek, right? So this is before any Sumerian, right? Long before. So from this Pelasgian side comes this Saba root. Neal, hit me with the next one. And what did the Victorians in 1850 figure out? Sabadzo is being used as a wadzo, which for the people who are on Lady Babylon's side of the fence will tell you, oh my God, that's the word that means to worship Bacchus. To worship Bacchus. It means, give it to me, Neal, the next one. It means to cry, Ewa, Ewa, in honor of Bacchus. So when I open up Genesis, and I see the name Eve, and the Septuagint says her name is Zoe, I know that this is the Ewa Zoe. That is a Greek concept. That is the water of life. Open your eyes. This is wonderful. Let's keep going. It's not
the name Eve, though.
It isn't Greek.
It's Chava.
Keep going.
Because there's no vav. There's no vav in Greek. The upsilon, right?
Yeah. Hey, I'll tell you the basic thing I tell incomers into the intensive Greek course. The vowels are tuning. The vowels are tuning those consonantal stems. And that E on the end is just the way to address that Ewa. Ewa becomes Ewa. Oh, isn't that nice?
Where does the guttural come from?
You thought it's not a guttural. There's a have you ever heard of a digamma?
Yeah. I'm not. I'm
old
not.
Greek letter that got taken out of the alphabet before the Attics. Yeah. Right.
It is a letter that was used in the Mycenaean Greek that became drawn into the upsilon. Now, this draw happened early on because it makes it all the way over onto the Latin side. when a Latin wakes up in the morning, scratches his backside and walks out his hut and says, "Hey, video," he's saying, "I see something." Wah, wah. It's the W sound. Ewa, ewa. You spell it E-V-O-E. You spell it E-V-O-E.
I spell it Chetvav Hey. And I'm interested to know where the guttural came from.
Oh, well, here's the problem. That's Hebrew. And we're talking about the Greek language.
But how do you get from the Greek? This is what I'm most interested in is the path taken from there to the Hebrew.
Are you saying, Kipp, suppose, just let's pretend the Greek came first. You're asking how did it get from that into the Hebrew is what you're asking, in a way.
In terms of some of these words, I know ewa sounds a lot like our anglicized form of the Hebrew, or well, it's probably coming out of the Septuagint version of that name, but the Hebrew is chava. So where did that come from?
I see what you're saying. It was a later back translation, like all of the Hebrew. That's why you find the Dead Sea Scrolls with Greek, because they were translating into a dead liturgical language. When you go to the synagogues, you see Greek. Why don't you see any Hebrew? You see Greek in the synagogues. Nobody is writing anything in Hebrew.
Let's get back on track. All right.
Okay.
Go with your slides. Let's go to the next one.
Go ahead.
So Theosebea is what this guy Job has. And I want you to see that this is that Saba of Zeus or Theos. Good. Keep going, Neil. Right? Now, how does this translated, right, on the Masoretic side? You just use an adjective for being afraid, and you drop in Elohim. Look, Theosebea is taken by the Hebrew back translator and done literally. They have no internal concept of Theosebea or Saba. Hold on.
I got to slow this down for people who are watching who have no idea what you just said. So what you're saying is the word Theosebea, it's a technical term that means like to fear God or a religious feeling. It's a religious technical term. You're saying, I mean, look at the Hebrew, it looks like it's broken down to lire, which means one who feared God. You're saying it'd be really hard to go the other way around to translate those two words into Theosebeo.
Right. It would be impossible, Neil, because you would be adding a layer of technical expertise to something that's not there. If the Septuagint was translated and this is the original, you would never, ever get the word Theosebea, and you wouldn't have an extra virtue, the alethinos in front. The Hebrew only has 3.
Is that how the Septuagint translates?
Yeah.
Vire Elohim?
Yeah. There's no Elohim there.
Every time?
There's no Elohim there.
Yeah, the word, no, it just says Sabato.
No.
Well, let's go to here. That's a good question, Kipp.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to the text now.
I see. Yes, you're drawing this from the passage in Job.
The third line down, all to the right, if anyone's watching. Theosebes. So you're saying they took that word, it's a technical religious term, and they broke it down into 2 words in Hebrew, Vire Elohim. That's what Ammon is saying right now.
Vire Elohim. Yeah.
Vire, yeah. So, okay. So, that is a really good point.
Sorry, I shouldn't do that.
No, I mean, that's a good point.
No, I think, and look, I don't have any problem with seeing connections to Greek within the Hebrew text. I just very much struggle to see that this is straight across a Greek construction that was then translated into Hebrew.
What if I asked you, what if I said, can you just take it from a guy who's been reading Greek for 30 years and has read everything on the classical side and biblical side, And that, whether it's church fathers talking about their mucky muck, or whether it's Julius friggin' Caesar, right? Okay, can you just take it from a guy like that I can pick up the Septuagint and read it? And I know exactly when it's definitely a Hellenistic text. It uses Hellenistic constructions. What do I mean
Not
by
always.
that? What do I mean by that? Little things that you cannot do in Hebrew. For example, you take one root and you put two different prefixes on it, and you have both versions back to back. Septuagint does that all the time. And what's funny is watching the Hebrew try to kind of like try to express that little gymnastics that they can't. All I'm saying is this is a Hellenistic text.
You have an example you can give, Ammon, on that?
He did give one. The Theosebeo broken down. I think that's a fair.
So
okay. Well, is there another one?
So can I just say, I mean, like I said, so you're dealing with a word, right? I just and I have no problem with on an etymological level some cross-pollination. I have no problem with that taking place. If you want to assert that, or sometimes that's a bad word. I'm sorry. I don't mean it that way. But if you want to tell me that the idea of God-fearing is a Greek concept, yeah, sure. I can accept that.
No, that's exactly what I don't want to tell you, because Theosebes is not God-fearing as it was translated into the Hebrew. It is a very specific veneration of Sabazeus or Dionysus for oracular rite, like you were getting in your telesterion that Moses set up when the voice of God was appearing to him. It's the same system. It is Greek.
Wait,
it is not Hebrew.
Is it the same word?
Do you mind if I do a check here?
Yeah.
To see.
I wish you would have before you came. Seriously.
While he's doing that, you have a couple more slides.
I know. I'm
bring it up. Bring it up.
Ammon, you should know this about me. Hold on.
I was going to say this is a great conversation.
Shut up, Derek. Can you shut up? So, Ammon, you should know this about me. I have been told on Twitter that I'm a very, very lazy scholar. So this is what you get, I'm afraid.
I just want you to be. I just want to be honest with you, Kipp, and I want you to be honest with me. And if you're going to say that you know the language, you better have done your work.
Can I tell you that my Hebrew is much better than my Greek? How's your Hebrew, by the way?
Okay, I spent a year in Israel at an archaeological dig at Megiddo. It was good enough to get along at a bar. But that was a long time ago.
Good Lord.
Yeah, long time ago. Long time
bad,
ago.
Right? Bad. Your Hebrew is so here's the problem, everyone. Ammon's Hebrew is about the equivalent to my Greek.
Listen to your listen.
I think it's fair to say.
Listen, Dr. Kipp. Listen, Dr. Kipp, for a minute to yourself. You said my Hebrew. My Hebrew was modern Hebrew, which has a vocabulary of about 60,000 independent words.
It's a modern language.
It's flourishing.
It was invented in 1920.
It's doing fantastic, right? It's doing fantastic.
But it's a modern.
The classical Hebrew is 5,000 words long. It's 5,000 words long.
A modern language.
Yes.
Modern Hebrew is not ancient Hebrew.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious. So I'm very curious about this, though. This expression Yireh Elohim is not consistently translated. What's the Greek word? Theosebe? It's not.
Theosebe.
I mean, I have an example here, and I'm only just searching the Torah here. I have an example here in Genesis chapter 22, verse 12, where Yireh Elohim is translated as it was like literally the first one I pulled up.
That's because there's no word for Elohim.
Theon.
That there's no right. Do you see what happens? Right?
No, I don't.
If the Greeks were going to translate the Hebrew, If the Greeks were going to translate the Hebrew, they would have hit that the same both times. They didn't. They chose not to. But the Hebrew can't afford to express that power. So what does it do? It's the fear of God over and over again. That's all. Altar. The word for altar. How many words for altar are there in Hebrew?
So can I ask you that? So this is interesting. Why?
I want to understand.
Why does quiet, Neil? Why does the Hebrew writer of the Pentateuch always use the same word for altar? Mizbeah.
He doesn't. You just don't read Greek, so you can't read it.
I'm talking about the Hebrew.
Because they don't.
It's always the same.
Because they don't have the language.
They have a perfectly good word that they could have translated Bamos with. They could have translated it with Bama. Why not?
Hebrew is dead. Hebrew is dead. They couldn't even translate Angeloi. They had to translate Son.
Are you saying, so if you're saying Hebrew is dead, right? We go back in time. We're looking at the 2nd century BC and 1st century and the first. What they're using Hebrew still? We know that. Like, are you saying it's just used for religion or scripture? Is that what you're saying? What do you mean by that when you say Hebrew is dead?
Yeah. There's 500,000 scrolls at least in Alexandria. Tell me how many of those scrolls are in Hebrew, Syriac, Aramaic? You're not going to find jack. You're not going to find jack. The stuff doesn't exist. They have no literature. Where is the Hebrew medical literature? There isn't any because their dead language couldn't support it. They were all speaking Greek. Their synagogues. Go to a synagogue from the 2nd century. Why is there Greek all over the place? Because their liturgical language died. It was unable to stay alive in a living, demanding world. Yes.
I mean, there's Hebrew manuscripts that date back.
Oh, why? Let me ask you this, Ammon. I'm pushing back on Ammon now because I'm curious. Why would they even make these translations into Hebrew then?
For the same reason they said in antiquity.
I actually can I just throw in here and say that, I mean, there's clearly a revival of Hebrew language during the Hasmonean period. I think that's obvious. The Hasmoneans were, what's the word I'm looking for? They were explicit about ensuring this revival. This is why I think within a number of the Dead Sea Scrolls, you've got a new, I mean, it's called Paleo Hebrew, the script. But it's like a new form of the old Hebrew script that survives from the mid Iron Age, from like the 8th, 7th, 6th century. But it's different. It's slightly different though, right? So there is an I totally, yes. I mean, there is a programmatic intent to basically revive the Hebrew language that takes place during the Hasmonean period.
I got to ask a question for both gentlemen here. And I don't know if this is relevant. You might see how this might be relevant to this discussion. As far as which came first, the chicken or the egg, I don't know, right? And I'm wondering if there's a mix of things happening. But my question is, when do you guys date the composition of the Pentateuch? I imagine there's sporadic sources that no matter when you date it are going to vary on dates, specifically which texts go back or whatever. My question to you, Kipp, and then it'll be to Ammon. Kipp, when do you think the composition of what we call the Bible, and I don't mean it in its full canonization form, which is still molding even post the time the Dead Sea Scrolls are being written and all that. But when do you think the Pentateuch, the Torah, all of this stuff was actually in its final composition? And then
final composition?
Or at least because Josephus.
I'm asking when they're starting to write it.
This is such a complicated question.
I know, but that's why this whole issue is complicated to me, because where you kind of put this might play a role in how this composition is being utilized. And I imagine it's way grayer and messier than either or.
There is no question that Greek is a much more sophisticated, developed language than Hebrew. I don't think that's in dispute at all. And I don't think that the complexity of Greek has any bearing on whether or not it's a translation of something that's from the Hebrew. Virtually all the Hebrew words that we have within the Bible are words that we know from other Canaanite literature. Many of the stories are so simple, they literally look word for word exactly like. There are phrases within Hebrew that look exactly like within the Bible, exactly like counterparts from Ugaritic, from Ugarit, Ras Shamra, that are dated to like the 10th, 11th, 12th century BCE. But there's more to it than this as well, because we actually have surviving Semitisms within the Septuagint. And I guess, for me, the one that I think is perhaps the most prevalent and obvious is the infinitive absolute. And it doesn't make any sense if the authors of the Pentateuch are translating a Greek document, that they would transform certain expressions that appear there into Hebrew infinitive absolutes.
And give us one example, and then let's allow Ammon to give his
Can
side.
I ask, does Ammon have an explanation for that?
Well, I'll let you guys talk, actually. Let's do that.
Yeah, I just want to say, hoo-ha, hoo-ha. Your question was, when is it written? Stylistically, the Septuagint, not Septuagint,
Sorry,
Septuagint
I was trained in the
written.
UK.
Can you be quiet? You've been telling everybody else to be quiet. Can you be quiet for a minute? Thanks.
Let's be civil
Thanks.
here.
Mhm.
So,
You guys.
I can.
yeah, civil.
Sorry.
Let's be civil. Let's be civil. So I would say stylistically, again, if you just handed that to me as a linguist, I would say, look, it has no elements of second sophistic Greek. It looks like it's drawing upon words from Lycophron, Callimachus, Theocritus, and that's enough right there. Just there's enough of those three sources to say, okay, we're securely within some kind of Hellenistic continuum, right? That's what I would say. I would say this thing smacks of Hellenistic. Wait, but I would put this on just a little cherry on the top of my linguistic analysis. There is an air of sophistication that I would say this composer, and by the way, there's huge similarities linguistically between books all the way on one side and the other. It really looks like one person sat down and composed this thing. Anywho, I'll let the scholars, so-called, fight over that kind of stuff. If you were to hand me that, your question was, what year is it? What year is it, Derek? I would say I'd feel very comfortable putting it in the 3rd or 2nd century. First, I'd have to compare with, like, look at Nicander. He's getting some Nicander. He's 2nd century. Let's do 3rd and 2nd century. And that's what I notice. That's what I notice, Derek, when I am looking up words in using the Oxford. You can track their history. And the more I read the Septuagint, the more I know I'm getting references. You'll get some classical stuff, right? But heavy. So his vocabulary, or whoever's writing it, their vocabulary is heavily Hellenistic. I would laugh at anybody who says this comes before then. It's completely out of style. It would be completely out. It's not Attic, right? It's not classical. It has no similarity with the lyric, right? Okay, so I would say stylistically, if a professor threw that at me and I was a grad student or something, I would say, okay, I'm gonna have to guess 3rd or 2nd centuries. How do I know that, Derek? Because John Scarborough at the University of Wisconsin, who does medical history and drugs from the Greek, he was the one who pounded in my head. You have to read these Hellenistic authors. You have to get an understanding of their scientific vocabulary so that you can compare it with Galen, because Galen was my man, right? So that's how I would answer your question. 3rd or 2nd century.
Real quick. Let me jump in for a second, because it does feel like the way that let's just stick with Genesis as a single text. The way it's written, the storytelling, the style, the way it's written, it sort of looks like looks like it comes from the post-Euhemerus era, where it's first of all, it's very well written. It has this slant towards these things actually are historical, and it's not totally like Zeus is in the clouds flying around throwing thunderbolts. It's like believable stories about the past, mythologized stories. It feels Euhemeristic to me, but also whoever is putting this together has knowledge of the Near East going back to Hammurabi, because they're talking about eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, and you're seeing elements of ancient Near Eastern stuff. I don't think you can deny that. That's what I wanted to start. I just wanted to throw that in there. Dr. Kipp, what do you think?
I'm just very interested to hear Ammon tell me about how the why. Sorry, what was my question originally? I'm just very.
I'm not interested in giving an answer, Kipp. So let's just go.
No, you don't want to talk to me about the Hebrew, the infinitive.
I think you're full of it. I think you're full of it, and I think you were saying in the chat room that you are an expert in Greek, and you said there's no way. There's no way.
I didn't say I was an expert in Greek.
There's no way. Bring it or don't. Bring it or don't, Kipp. Bring it or don't.
Can we go to
like
a
that
passage?
Dr. Kipp, you've been pretty nice. Ammon, you don't got to be like that, man. You don't got to tell him he's full of it.
Honesty, Neal. All my life. All my life. Honesty. If you're gonna
faith.
Okay.
I think Dr. Kipp actually thinks this. He's not.
I think it's gentleman, though. I think it's gentleman, don't you, Neal? I think it's gentleman. Don't you think that if you're going to assert an argument about the ancient Greek,
I am asserting an argument.
Maybe you've read some ancient Greek.
A little bit, but
have you?
If you're going to, so a little bit, yeah.
Fantastic.
So, okay, but then again, I mean, isn't it fair to say that your knowledge of ancient Hebrew is maybe not strong enough to be making some of these assertions?
Yeah, and that's why I tell everyone, when I have the Septuagint, I have a Greek document. It's native Greek. It's native Greek. Okay.
Yes.
My argument's not. I laugh at the Hebrew attempt to try to translate it, but I know that the one that's being quoted in the 1st century is the Septuagint. They're not quoting Hebrew. They're quoting the Septuagint directly. So that's Kipp. That's all I'm interested in. It's the actual text.
Well,
and I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I get a little bit bent out of shape, but don't claim what you aren't. If you're going to stand up to the text, stand up to them. And
in Hebrew,
I admire
literature is what I am.
Yes. You said the Hasmoneans were the ones who brought the revival of literature. Can you give me the
name? I didn't say that. I said the Hasmoneans revived Hebrew.
Yeah. Okay. And what does that mean?
That means that they revived the usage of the script, the ancient script, in the expression of their sacred texts.
So there are pieces of literature, great works of different genres of Hebrew then, right?
Not many, no.
Yeah,
and
no,
I don't know how that has any bearing. Okay,
how about one? How about one?
Listen. So what I wanted to get to...
I don't have to listen.
I also don't have to listen. Maybe I should just go.
Maybe you should.
I didn't want this to turn into a debate, guys. I'm sorry, Dr. Kipp. I didn't want this to happen. I just wanted you guys to tell me why you think this is. I didn't want this to. You guys are no more calling each other out for being full of it. No more of that stuff.
Yeah.
How about people what they have to say? That's it. That's all I'm asking.
I'm perfectly happy, but if he misrepresents himself, he's talking about the text, Neal, that I read all day long for 30 years. I don't want somebody saying something that all of your guests will hear it and they will think he knows what he's talking about. I've heard academics do this for years. For years, they do the same thing. He's talking in circles. Notice he doesn't bring any examples, right? That's not going to get us anywhere.
That's kind of my fault because I threw this on him real late. He didn't have time. He was doing stuff. That's kind of my fault. Don't blame him for that because I told Dr. Kipp like last minute that we were doing this. He didn't have time. He had to go. He had movies planned and a dinner. He did not have time to go and get examples. That's my fault. I could have gave him more time.
By the way, this is the greatest thing ever. You guys are giving a forum for people to be able to hash it out in sincerity. I felt my honor was impugned, that somebody was telling a falsehood in my presence. That's all, guys. If you're going to have the guts to stand up and say something about the sources, you better be aware of those sources.